What is going on, New York Giant fans, NFL fans, anyone who's watching this video? Welcome back. Definitely hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. Share this out as well. We're building this to 1K and beyond, but we got to get to 1K first with memberships and a lot of different other stuff, exclusive stuff as well. So would appreciate you guys hitting that subscribe button, share out, do all the good stuff. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts as well. So in this video, I'm going to go into 5 New York Giants players that should not return for 2023. Now, I think the most obvious one we can all agree on is Kenny Golladay. He's not going to be in this video, A, because it's fairly obvious. That might be a separate video. And B, because, well, he's not a free agent. We're talking about free agents in this video. You know, who the Giants should bring back, who the Giants should not bring back. And I know I brought this up on one of the last episodes of the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast, but I want to do a further breakdown. I've also got some stats here on my index card, which relates to some of the guys we'll be talking about. So without further ado, I think we should get right into the nitty-gritty. Number 1 is Jalen Smith, and I think towards the end of the year, he found new ways to piss me off. Now, Jalen Smith was signed, I think, within the first few weeks by the Giants because, you know, Tay Crowder was in there. Blake Martinez was cut. A couple other guys were, cut as well. And they really didn't have a solution at the linebacker position. Austin Calitro and Tay Crowder were the starters in week 1. Micah McFadden wasn't necessarily ready. So Jalen Smith was basically the Giants' Mike Backer for the year 2022 on defense. And the Giants actually had him on the roster in 2021. I thought he played solid when, he was making plays in the running game, making plays in the open field. And then 2022 just took a dump. Like, it just jumped off the bridge. The Giants didn't re-sign Benardrick McKinney, who I thought played solid as well. But obviously, a good player on a bad team can go 2 ways. It can either be really good or really bad. And this is why you don't take flyers on guys and then say, okay, they had a good 1 year, let's have them over another year. Because some of these guys are 1-year wonders. Jalen Smith, an example of that. Mike Talkman for the Yankees, if you guys remember him, got any Yankee fans in the chat, Mike Talkman was a 1-year wonder. But Jalen Smith, there's not a lot of stats that exhibit it. It's kind of a film thing. You have to watch the Giant games to be out there and acknowledge it. But I'll go over the stats real quick and then talk about why he was so bad. 88 tackles, 4 pressures, a sack, 82.1 completion percentage allowed in coverage, 100 passer rating, no touchdowns, 224 yards, and total of 3 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits. Why was he so bad? Also a fumble recovery for 4 yards, which I believe was in that Houston game. Why was he so bad? Well, in coverage, we have been able to, have solid linebackers in coverage for many years as Giant fans and just as part of the Giants organization. So he was really bad in coverage. Now, was he straight up covering any guys? Not necessarily, but in zone coverage, the lack of recognition of what his zone was terrible. Give you guys a prime example. So we had I think it was the wild card game or it was the first Vikings game where KJ Osborne is wide open on a sit route, on a mesh concept. So obviously you have one crosser concept, you have another crosser concept, but you have a guy basically that's running towards the end zone but cuts back. So it's kind of like a flat, but he just sits there. That's why it's called a sit route. And then nobody was covering that zone because Jalen Smith, he thought it was man coverage, so he peels over to the left side. And then wide open is KJ Osborne. He walks in for the touchdown, and it looked like Jarrad Davis was at fault. Another guy who shouldn't come back, but he's not going to be in this video. Spoiler alert. But his recognition and coverage just not great. That's number 1. Number 2 is probably blatant and the most obvious. Could not come off a block to save his life and could not make tackles to save his life. Now, yeah, I get it. 88 tackles. That's great on the stat sheet. I'm surprised that Pro Football Reference has not credited him with any missed tackles over the last 2 years for the Giants, but I seriously think that's kind of flawed because, for instance, right, when Boston Scott had a huge running lane thanks to Jalen Smith missing a tackle in the divisional round game, I guess that's not credited to him. But the lack of ability to break off of blocks as a Mike backer and the inability to tackle and at least do zone coverage. And the Giants can upgrade from this position. And obviously they were getting guys in and out, Michael McFadden, Tate Crowder, Austin Calitro, Blake Martinez, whatever. But Jalen Smith is clearly washed. I don't know that I would even bring him back for depth purposes. He was just so bad at the Mike backer position to where the Giants were saying, okay, Giants fans were saying, let's get Tate Crowder back in here, or maybe Gerard Davis should play some Mike or whatever. But we were just booking for scraps at that point. I thought Michael McFadden should have played a little bit more, but it is what it is. So number one is our buddy Jalen Smith. Number two, go to the offensive side of the ball. That's John Feliciano. He got better as the year went on. Didn't have a good game against the Eagles. Just some stats for you guys. 22 pressures, 3 sacks, 6 penalties at center. And then you go to some extra stuff. This really doesn't tell a great story. If you're an analytics bug, it tells a great story. If you're not an analytics bug, then you could give two shits about it. I'm in the middle because, I'll look at analytics. I won't look at analytics for certain things. This one is kind of, I would say, a flawed analytic, if you will. It's kind of like ESPN's pass block win rate. So, John Feliciano, for the season at center, 97.6 pass block efficiency rating, which isn't bad. I guess. I don't know. I don't know that stat, so part of my dislike for the stat is my non-knowledge of the stat. Then he had 4 games with a pass block efficiency rating of 98 or above, and 3 of those games over 100. Now, the pressures are concerning for a center, which is 22. 3 sacks, that's not ideal. Let's take a look. Because PFF, I don't really trust them a ton, but we could see where he ranks. So he was tied for 9th in sacks allowed, which isn't great. You'd like to be a little bit lower on that level. And tied for 9th, they rank it as, okay, let's just say Creed Humphrey gave up 15 sacks this year, he'd rank first. It's not the other way around. So as far as Feliciano goes, I like the way he pulled on occasion. I feel like there was some plays, he was really good at pulling. The Giants love their athletic offensive guards, Josh Zudu being one, Glowinski being another. Feliciano obviously going into that category. And there was other times where, you would have more to be desired on a run block. At center-wise, excuse this siren if you hear in the background, this New York City for you. In terms of pass blocking at center, according to the metrics, he was solid, but you have to look at the film and he was not consistent with it. Like, towards the end of the season, the Colts game, the Vikings game, and the wild card game, he was solid. But he's not a guy that I recommend the Giants bringing back. Especially that horrid start to the year at center. And you know what? You have Nick Gates in the building. Or at least he's a free agent. I'd re-sign him. Ben Bredesen, he's in the building. Tyree Phillips can play guard and tackle. You could draft a couple of guys. So I would not bring John Feliciano back. I mean, I'm more positive on him than Jalen Smith, but what does that say? Right. Moving on, probably one of the more hated guys. I think this guy might be more hated in the Giants fan base than John Feliciano. That's Jamie Gillen. Yes, the quote-unquote Scottish Hammer. This is a move I really didn't like from the Giants when they first got him. Because all over Twitter, I looked on ESPN, a couple of different sites, and he had punting stats and metrics worse than Riley Dixon. And Riley Dixon was bad the last 2 years for the Giants before 2022. So I'm like, great. Got fucking Jamie Gillen now. He punted for the Bills, which is the connection. He also punted for the Cleveland Browns. So this year, his stats are up and down, but some of them there's down, right? He ranked 19th in average yards per punt. He ranked 11th in net yards. He ranked 9th in total punt yards, which, can be either way. Great, okay, he was 9th in punt yards, but how many times did the Giants punt this season? Right. 2nd in touchbacks. That's terrible. That is absolutely awful. 2nd in touchbacks. Can't be had on special teams because when your offense isn't good, you have to punt. I don't know what field position, in certain scenarios you can go back during the season. You need to punt inside the 20, inside the 10, pin that other offense down, and then go from there. But 2nd in touchbacks isn't great. 26th in net average yards. Not good. 8th in punts out of bounds. That one you could really determine it goes one way or the other, once again, depending on the film, because you could have a punt that goes at the 8-yard line out of bounds. But you could also have it go out of bounds at the 40-yard line. So it's a double-sided coin. And then one punt blocked and one fumbled snap. I think we all remember that fumble snap against the Eagles, where you cannot kick the ball off the ground. You can't drop kick it. And then the Eagles got premium field position. And you could say, well, that's when the game was over. So Jamie Gillen, really don't want you back. I think the Giants should go in free agency. Sam Martin, I don't know how he did for Buffalo, but maybe Joe Shank call up his guys and say, listen, I need a punter. How is Sam Martin? Thomas Morstead's available. He's been solid throughout the course of his career. He is a little older. He's in his 40s. Or you could draft a punter, which I'm not necessarily fond of. Adam Korsak was up and down at the Senior Bowl. And when was the last time we drafted a punter? Give you a hint. Deshaun Jackson. That's not the punter's name, if anyone was just, didn't get the joke. But Jamie Gillen, number 3. Number 4, we're going to go to Richie James. This one you could go heads or tails on. I don't think that Richie James should be back. He had career highs in a lot of different areas. 4 touchdowns, 569 yards, 10 yards per reception. That's not really a career high for him. Played in 17 games, so, he was healthy for the most part. 81.4 catch percentage. He had 3 fumbles. 2 of them on special teams against the Seahawks, as we all know. He had a 119.6 passer rating when passed too, so that was actually very good. It's a positive. Had the most drops of his career at 3, which isn't terrible for a Richie James type of guy. But I don't think the Giants should re-sign him for a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously he got better as the season went on in terms of special teams, but there was no burst out of him. I think the Giants could go in the draft. If they draft Tank Dell, who needs to beef up a little bit, he's exciting on special teams. They could give this guy Khalil Pimpleton a shot. He was an undrafted free agent out of Central Michigan, I believe, or Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, whatever the Michigan college is. You can easily find a slot receiver in the draft. It's not hard. I mean, the slot, I think, is an easier position than the outside. Obviously, you have to be a bit smaller. But I think the slot is an easier position than the outside because, I mean, it's just a tougher position. Just a tougher position for slot corners. Easier position for wide receivers. And Wandale's a slot guy. Like, that's not going to be a guy that goes on the outside. Some of the other guys that the Giants may have been, scouting on. Slot receiver is an abundant position in the NFL, is my belief. Wide receivers on the outside, that's a different story. But could we bring Richie James back? Maybe, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it was right for him. Obviously, career highs, but I wouldn't bring him back personally. You get more explosive on special teams. You could get a better wide receiver in terms of the slot. My opinion. But we got to go to the last one. Justin Ellis. Now, unfortunately for me, there's not many efficiency stats that say how many times you can get mulled over by an offensive lineman, whether that be a double team or a single block. Justin Ellis was the Danny Shelton of this year, and it's been the last 2 years the Giants have signed guys that just get mulled over in the running game, and we have no defensive line depth. Now, Ryder Anderson is a start. The Giants definitely have to go in this draft and get 1 or 2 guys at the defensive interior position because you can't have Dexter Lawrence playing 90% of the snaps. You can't have Leo playing 95% of the snaps. That's not what they're built for. They're going to age. They're going to tail off at some point. You can't have that. But Justin Ellis, he got his first full NFL sack this year. A total of 22 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a quarterback hit. I'm pretty sure he has a poor PFF rating. He did stay healthy. But what does that say when you're trash? 32% of the defensive snaps played. Offers 0 pass rush ability. Doesn't offer really anything against the run. I think he's below average against the run. He was seen as this guy coming into the year, he takes double teams. I should have watched my film more closely because this guy got mauled and mauled and mauled and mauled by double teams by single block guys. Jason Kelsey mauled him in the divisional game. 6'2", 350 pounds. I just cannot stand guys, and there's a narrative out there, obviously, against drafting, guys that are 320, 330, 340 pounds. I can't stand guys at the NFL level who don't have their weight leveled, that they don't have it balanced, because especially if you're a defensive lineman, that's going to be very tough against the run and against the pass. You get pancaked easily. And that's what we saw when Justin Ellis was in. I mean, there was a big run from Dameon Pierce against the Texans. Why was it, he had the big run? Because Dexter Lawrence and Xavier McKinney were out. So there's your 5 New York Giants free agents that should not return: Jalen Smith, Feliciano, Gillen, James, Ellis. If I missed any on this list, please let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops video drops. Appreciate you all coming back. Still building this to 1K. Let's get there. Share it out. Do all the good stuff. We'll be back for Boys in the Big Apple on Monday. Then we will be recapping the Chiefs game, talking a little bit of baseball, going into draft prospects in the NFL offseason. It's going to be exciting. Hope you guys are here for the ride. Peace out, guys. See you later. Stay cool.